A decade ago, Megalovania cemented itself as one of the most iconic songs in all of gaming history. But the wild popularity of both Megalovania and the No Mercy Sans fight has created two of the biggest misunderstandings in all of Undertale. It completely corrupted how the entire internet sees Sans, and Megalovania has stolen the seat as Undertale's undisputed Magnum Opus. So I think as a community, we're long overdue to set the record straight. But before I can get to what I think is the true Magnum Opus of Undertale, I'll need to explain a few things. Don't get me wrong, Megalovania is absolutely an incredible song, and the Sans fight deserves no less. But let's get something cleared up. Megalovania does not represent Undertale. A Magnum Opus is usually supposed to be the best, most important, or most representative piece of art from an artist, or in this case, game. And while some of that is subjective, I still think it's possible to prove why Megalovania is none of those things. So let's start with the most subjective point, that Megalovania isn't the best song in Undertale. One of the reasons Undertale became so famous in the first place is because of its soundtrack. Calling any of the songs in Undertale the absolute best is a stretch no matter which one you pick. I may not know anything about musical composition and can't tell you why they're impressive there, but I have ears, so do you. And these songs are all fantastic. I have my favorites and I'm sure everybody watching does as well. And it would only be a disservice to say that any one of these songs is objectively better than the others from how they sound alone. Megalovania isn't the best song because there is no best song. So the first point is down, and I know it doesn't seem like a big one because it isn't. Even if it's not the best song in the game, it could still be the Magnum Opus by being the most important or representative song of the game. So let's cover those much bigger points. Calling Megalovania the most important song in Undertale is a little disingenuous. The battle sequence and lore reveals we learn about Sans are certainly very interesting, but it comes nowhere close to the importance of other scenes in the game. Which do you think is more important? The scene where Sans finally stands up to the player's violence? Or the scene where we meet the King of Monsters and even though the remorse for his sins is a heavy weight on his shoulders, he's still willing to commit one again? Or the scene where we discover the lab and get the closest to Gaster we've gotten so far, even 10 years later? Or how about any part of the true pacifist ending? All of these scenes are not only more important, but more relevant to the actual story of Undertale. Which brings me to the third point. Most representative. Not just relevant, but actually representative of the story of Undertale. The No Mercy route could not be as far away of a representation of Undertale as physically possible. This is the route where you make every single wrong decision and get punished repeatedly. It's not only boring to actually play through, but when it's finally not boring for once, it's ball-crushing. Because of this, I would argue that Battle Against a True Hero is more relevant to the greater story of Undertale than Megalovania, because it plays when the game reveals just how powerful determination is. Determination, that thing you've been seeing throughout the entire game. But even Battle Against a True Hero isn't representative of Undertale for the same reason that Megalovania isn't, because it only plays during the most corrupted route of the game. Undyne's determination doesn't matter if she only has it because you literally killed everyone. The No Mercy route and everything in it is completely disqualified from Magnum Opus status. And if you need more proof, think about this. If someone had only seen clips from the No Mercy route, would they really know that much about Undertale at all? No. The No Mercy route isn't Undertale. And Megalovania doesn't just misrepresent Undertale, it also misrepresents Sans. My original plan for this video was to do my own in-depth analysis of Sans that would eventually become this section of the video. So to prepare for the script, I started watching all of these Sans character analysis videos to see what I agreed with and what I didn't, so I could compile my own take on Sans. In all of the videos I came across, I thought this more recent one was really onto something, but in this hour-long video, only about 15 minutes of it is actually dedicated to Sans, and the analysis is over as soon as it starts to get interesting. The more Sans character analysis videos I watched, the more I thought that none of them really accomplished what they set out to do. All of the videos on Sans aren't nearly long enough or as in-depth as they need to be to actually create a representation of Sans that paints a full picture. And at a certain point of watching all of these videos, I started to think that understanding Sans isn't the point of Sans. Getting to the core of his character would probably take a multi-hour length video essay that goes into the complexities of mental health, depression, and psychology. And that's a lot. Too much even. And what I realized is, Sans is so much more than a character to be right about. Whether intentionally or not, Toby Fox has managed to create a character that is so flexible in interpretation that Sans has essentially become a modern piece of art. The internet has completely demolished, rebuilt, misinterpreted, adulterated, and shredded Sans a million times. It's no different from any other piece of art that suffered the same fate of mass interpretation. Nobody gets Sans, but nobody doesn't either. I think this is the bit of nuance that gets missed the most often during even the most in-depth discussions of Sans as a character. Everybody gets caught up in trying to be right about who he truly is at his core and explaining every contradictory thing that he does, and it's something I almost got caught up in too. But Sans is irrational, or Sans is depressed, or Sans is just making the best of things. Sans has a lot of interpretations, which is the point of something having an interpretation. Technically, your own interpretation is the most right one, and someone else's is also the most right one. But with any good piece of art that splits into a million pieces under public interpretation, the truth is, we aren't supposed to know. Since I'm already comparing Sans to a piece of art, it's worth noting that some of the most controversial pieces of art ever made have had interpretations so drastically different that it's the entire reason they were ever controversial. And even people in the real world who act irrationally don't always have an answer when asked why they do the things that they do. Hats off to Toby Fox for accidentally creating one of the most interestingly written characters I've ever seen. I do think some interpretations are probably closer to explaining Sans than others and closer to some theoretical true core of his character, but we aren't supposed to get it. We aren't supposed to get Sans. If Megalovania doesn't actually represent what Undertale is about, and if we aren't supposed to get the most enigmatic character of the game, then what's the true Magnum Opus of Undertale? Which scene, and by extension, which song, represents the most important and best moments in Undertale? Well, if our reference for the Magnum Opus of Undertale is gonna be Sans, then it's gonna have to be a scene involving Sans. A scene that not only doesn't misrepresent him, but gets as close as we've ever been to his true character. And if you have any basic amount of knowledge on Sans as he appears in game, you might have already narrowed it down. Without a doubt, the Magnum Opus of Undertale has to be It's Raining Somewhere Else. And look, I'll get my own bias out of the way. This is 100% my favorite song in the entirety of the Undertale OST, and I'm not alone on this. It's Raining Somewhere Else is one of the most beloved songs in all of Undertale. And the reason it has more going for it than something like Another Medium or Ruins is because of the memories associated with it. This is why Megalovania, Home, Waterfall, Death by Glamour, And a lot of the most famous Undertale songs went down in history because there's something in the game that actually happened when they were playing. Not just set pieces or background music, songs that had important moments associated with them. And It's Raining Somewhere Else beats out the rest for a couple of reasons. The first and most obvious is that spectacle does not equate to quality, importance, or even timelessness. While the twist of Sans being the hardest boss with a banger song was absolutely insane, it's not what Undertale is about. Megalovania only plays when you've done literally everything wrong and stay on that path when the game gives you like a dozen opportunities to stop. You know, everything I talked about earlier. And not just the no mercy route, but the Sans fight itself is as far away from being representative of Undertale as a scene gets. The sheer spectacle of this song has given it credit where credit's due, but has also caused Megalovania, the anti-Undertale song, to become the strongest legacy of Undertale that exists even today. It's not fair to Undertale, it's not fair to Sans. It's the same way I feel about Solo Leveling winning Anime of the Year over Freerun because people forgave a mediocre story for good visuals. While Megalovania is definitely cool, something that is so far divorced from Undertale doesn't make it the Magnum Opus just because of sheer spectacle. And conversely, It's Raining Somewhere Else doesn't need any spectacle to make it stand out. But okay, Megalovania doesn't represent Undertale, but why does It's Raining Somewhere Else when there's so many other important scenes in the game? Why does this quiet, short, and slow scene reign king as the best and most important moments that Undertale has to offer? This is a pretty hard question, but no matter how long I thought about it, I kept coming to the same conclusion that nothing is more important than your date with Sans. It's Raining Somewhere Else is a look behind the curtain. It's the moment that all of the foreshadowing so far comes together and you realize that the silly, whimsical world of Undertale is a dark, rotting place. The realist character takes some time out of his day to tell you, yes you, that it is nothing short of a miracle that you haven't been killed already for the greater good of monster kind. Sans is your reality check, who puts into perspective how much the kindness of monsters is the only reason you get to keep walking. There were some hints of it before with Papyrus and Undyne, and Waterfall came close to revealing this, but the world still tried to convince you that people were getting by, that things were fine. The world tried to convince you that it's not so bad down in the underground. But that impression gets stripped away in an instant. It's Raining Somewhere Else isn't just the moments when you learn that there's so much more to Sans than he's letting on, but it's the moment you learn the true nature of Undertale as a story. This isn't a game about how player decisions change the ending like the fight with Undyne would have you believe. This is a game about a world with no hope and a future of death and despair holding back. The only reason the underground hasn't swallowed you whole is because of the fleeting moments of good giving them a little reason to treat their only way out with some decency, some mercy. You're not sparing them, they're sparing you. When you're playing the game, you're probably not even thinking about all of this yet. You're probably still thinking about how Sans joked about killing you, or maybe he didn't joke, but that's what it all meant. Whether or not Sans really would have killed you or needed that promise to have an excuse not to is debatable. But he was still thinking about it, and so is every single monster in the underground. For a short time after this date, you can forget about it for a while. You work your way through the core while Alphys is still awkwardly trying to help, and then you fight the funny robots. But that cold, reality-shattering truth comes back right after the Metaton fight is over. You see the dreary city and all of the monsters have gathered to follow you, waiting in anticipation as you reach the king and the barrier, and as a last courtesy before you die, they tell you their story and why they need you. Because they do. They do need you. You going home was out of the question. The other songs have scenes with varying degrees of importance to the story, but none of them come as close to having the same kind of implications and reveal that It's Raining Somewhere Else does. Undertale, the song, plays as you walk through the city, but the true nature of Undertale isn't the focus. It's more for giving the player some basic lore. The darker world implications were revealed earlier, when Sans said too much too soon. No other scene completely recontextualizes the entirety of Undertale and why you've even been able to get as far as you have. Megalovania is certainly special, and it comes with some really interesting implications about timelines and Sans and what happens when you go too far, but that's not what Undertale is about. The No Mercy route is about you trampling on every shred of mercy that this doomed world had for you. But both the neutral and pacifist runs, and It's Raining Somewhere Else, are all about how even the entirety of imprisoned monster kinds can still show the source of all of their problems a little mercy, and that maybe you could learn something from them. Showing them the unwavering mercy that they showed you is how you reach the true ending of the game after all. And until Deltarune fills in more of the gaps, it's the closest we can get to seeing the true nature of Sans, the most misunderstood character in Undertale. So, without a doubt, It's Raining Somewhere Else is the true magnum opus of Undertale.